there is at the local level being any of the taxing entities, there was a misapplication or essentially a non-application of a millage reduction fraction to Detroit Public Schools for its school operating millage. So the millage reduction fraction for Detroit schools was less than 1. It was 0.9690. So in other words, the millage should have been reduced about 3% or so from last year. It's a long technical discussion, which I won't bore you with, but it related to the sale of Greektown Casino, and that triggered a sub-1 reduction for the millage. The school district did not reduce its millage as it should have, but the July 1st tax bills went out already. And the tax reports that you're looking at, the summation of that, they were not due until September 30th. So this information came to us at least 3 months after the tax bills had already gone out, and the millage was already not reduced. So once again, the same statutory remedy that allowed for Schoolcraft to recover its lost revenue in the opposite direction will next year be able to be engaged to reverse or correct or remedy the situation where Detroit Public Schools this year essentially will have over collected or over levied on its taxes. So where the millage was not reduced this year, it will be reduced slightly more next year to offset the over collection of tax revenue for this year. So, and that amounts to about $2.5 million or so in excess tax collections for this year due to the non-reduction of Detroit schools millage rate. And the report has to account for the millages that were levied actually on the tax bills in order to perfect the tax liens that were associated with the tax roll. So when you see if you were to look at Detroit Public Schools millage rate and with their other millage rates, you'll see the rate that was actually levied on the tax roll itself and on the bills, and that's to ensure that there's a valid tax lien. Next year, when the statutory remedy is engaged with the school district, you'll not only see if there's a potential millage rate reduction for next year, you'll see the excess rate reduction to accommodate to offset the overcollection for this year. I know it's kind of a long-winded answer and it's kind of technical, but basically Detroit schools is getting a little bit too much on their tax bill this year, and there's a way to get that situation reversed by next year. It's nothing bad or improper or underhanded. It's a little bit of a technical error, and it happens once in a while with the taxing entities. And that's part of the process why you have an equalization department reviewing those things on your behalf. And we find those things, and then we work with the taxing entity to engage that remedy, and we get things corrected on the next taxing cycle if there's not a winter levy subsequently to make that happen. In this case, there's not. It was all levied on the summer bill.
So next year they'll have less to collect, plus then they'll get back what they collected this year by mistake.
Correct. Yeah, their tax revenue this year they collected $2.5 million too much. So next year they will get what they're getting less $2.5 million, so that over the course of the 2 years added together, if you will, the taxpayers will have been made whole at that point. And it's not a frequent occurrence when there's a mislevy, but it's frequent enough that the legislature had the foresight to actually codify the remedy to it in the actual tax act. So it's frequent enough that it actually is addressed how to fix the situation because it does occur, and essentially because everything is so complicated, it's easy to get something wrong. So there actually is a fix to it in the statute. So it's very easily remedied, and it does happen on occasion, and it's not the first time, and it won't be the last, I'm sure.
So did they report it, or you had to find it?
I had to find it. Yes, they actually.
Good job. Thank you.
Thank you. They actually didn't wind up submitting their report, and they're due September 30th statutorily. They didn't wind up submitting their report at all. I wound up having to get it secondhand through the City of Detroit assessor. So I didn't wind up getting that report from the school district itself. Had I gotten that timely from them, I would have been able to work with them, which is what I try to encourage them to do, is try to give it to us in draft form before the taxes go out. To their credit, I will say that the City of Detroit DDA Jennifer Canales, the board administrator for the DDA, did give me their report in advance of the summer tax bills for the DDA, and where it would have otherwise been incorrect. She had the foresight to work with us and give us that in advance, and we were able to get that correct and get the bill sent out correctly relative to the DDA, which is obviously where Greektown Casino is located, which kind of triggered this whole technical issue. So that was to the DDA's credit. We just didn't happen to have that advance notice in draft form for the tax rate report for the school district, but we will be working with them to ensure that the taxpayers don't pay any more and they don't pay any less. In this case, they will have paid a little bit more this year, but they will be paying a little bit less next year to offset that.
Thank you. Commissioner Marecki, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I do. Thank you. Scott, are there any other entities that just don't give you a report during all these processes? That
was the only one that just flat outright didn't give us a report. There, like I said, there are 105 of them. There are 37 school districts. There are 34 cities, 9 townships. There, quite a number of different taxing entities. I mean, you see with the very extensive packet that I've given you. The reason why I'm giving you such a large packet is there's the apportionment report itself. That's the actual substance of the information packet. But I've given you the supplement too. The reason why I'm giving you all that extra paper and kill all those extra trees is because if you look at the actual statute at 21137, it says part of the Board of Commissioners' responsibility is to quote unquote examine all the certificates and papers, and a lot of that process is incurred through the Equalization Department, is acting as your agent. But I've actually literally given you the certificates and papers pursuant to the statute. But the one entity, to answer your question, to make a long story short, which I'm not doing, it didn't give us a report, was Detroit Public Schools. And just by coincidence or not by coincidence, that happened to be the one that was very materially incorrect. And, a little bit of frustration there. Usually when we're coming up on the September 30th submission date, probably a week or so beforehand, I kind of give an email out to the taxing entities that have not yet submitted it and say, hey guys, we're coming up on the due date. I know it's not due yet. You haven't submitted. Just want to make sure that you're aware that it's due in a week, and please, be sure to submit by the due date. And that kind of, gets everyone, jogs the memory and gets the report in. In some cases that did not happen. So we're always kind of up against the wall at or around the due date or just past it. We're usually getting a few past the due date, which is why there's always this mad dash with Ways and Means and the full board and trying to get this report together seemingly at the last minute. But we're sort of at the mercy of 100 different outside agencies to give us this information. Then the real work actually has to start by looking at it and analyzing it. But so I think there was something like 20 different agencies a few days before the due date hadn't submitted yet. So then we actually were able to get most of those reports in by the due date, some after it. But again, to answer your question, it was just Detroit Public Schools that did not submit at all. I was able to get the report from the Detroit assessor.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone else has any questions? Mark, do you have any comments?
No, I don't, Madam Chair. Actually, what we're doing is really just a follow-up to what we did in April, where we approved the taxable values and the state equalized values, and now we're just applying the tax to it, as Scott had indicated. So again, part of the annual process.
Thank you. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Been moved.
Support.
And supported. Any more discussion? Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Scott?
Yes.
Commissioner Baker McCormick? Commissioner Baker McCormick? Commissioner Marecki?
Yes.
Oh,
I'm sorry. Yes, this is Baker McCormick.
Thank you. Commissioner Baidoon,
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson,
Yes.
Vice Chair Calamera,
Yes.
Chair Varga.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Next item, please.
Moving to item
Thank you.
E2, requesting commission approval of budget adjustment 2020-35-159, reallocating expenditures in the general fund.
Any questions on item 2?
Move approval.
It's been moved
Support, Scott.
and supported. Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Scott,
Yes.
Commissioner Baker McCormick,
Yes.
Commissioner Marecki,
Yes.
Commissioner Baidoon, Commissioner Baidoon,
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson,
Yes.
Vice Chair Palomera,
Yes.
Chair Varga.
Yes.
Motion carries. Moving
Next
to the
item.
item E3, requesting commission approval of budget adjustment 2020-35-218, reallocating expenditures in the general fund.
Thank you.
Move
Any- It's been
Support.
moved
A
and
whopping
supported.
$100.
Yeah.
Yeah. I could say all in favor, but we'll have the clerk call the roll, please.
Commissioner Scott,
Yes.
Commissioner Baker McCormick,
Yes.
Commissioner Marecki,
Yes.
Commissioner Baidoon,
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson,
Yes.
Vice Chair Palomera,
Yes.
Chair Varga.
Yes.
Motion carries. Next item, item E4, requesting commission approval of budget adjustment 2020-35-258, reallocating expenditures in the Juvenile Justice Abuse Neglect Fund.
Thank you. Any questions?
So move, Madam Chair.
Support.
Been moved and supported. Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Scott,
Yes.
Commissioner Baker McCormick,
Yes.
Commissioner Marecki,
Yes.
Commissioner Baidoon,
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson,
Yes.
Vice Chair Palomera,
Yes.
Chair Varga.
Yes.
Motion carries. Next item, item F, such other matters as may be properly submitted before the committee.
I wanted to bring to your attention that I did get a letter from the clerk and they want to meet with me, and the topic is what they thought they were promised or would like to have in their budget, and it's the oh, help me out, Mr. Abbo. I had forwarded, it's a call center.
Yes.
They would like to have a call center be activated as ASAP. Do we have anybody from the executive's office here?
Also through the chair, this is Joe Slazak. Ms. Garrett is going to be appearing before Government Operations tomorrow to speak on this. So if anyone who's not on GovOps wants to be there, you know, she'll be speaking on it.
Okay. Is there anyone from the administration online?
Hi, Commissioner, Madam Chair. This is Andrew Kandrivas from the administration. This is new to me. If you could send me that email, I'm sure I would find it interesting.
We did talk about it during the budget, so I will also send that to the Chief Financial Officer as well.
Yes, if you want to share that with him, that'd be great. I'll send it to him
I'll
if you send it to
CC
me.
you. Yeah, I will make sure you get it too.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
was this the hiring of the 4 additional people? Was that the
it
item?
was, I believe it was for the call center, yes.
Okay.
And
Yeah, I
we
thought
did talk about the need for that.
Yeah, I thought we actually did it. Okay, thank you.
And I know that the other issues that are going to be coming up will be the fingerprinting equipment. So, but I haven't received anything on that. So I'm going to reach out to Dwayne, who sent the email, and also try to chime in on government operations. That's all I have for today.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I have a couple election-related questions. One on finances and another on process. Could someone refresh my memory? Did we allocate additional funds to the clerk's office for the for this year's election, especially based on the 200 to 300% increase in absentee voting? Were there additional funds that awarded to them to assist in their operations?
I don't believe so, but Mark?
I believe we were going to handle that as a budget adjustment as it was discussed with the clerk.
She's going to need the money, she said, after election day, not necessarily for the election day activities, but the days after.
Oh, okay.
Correct, but she will need it.
Yeah, the need was acknowledged. The need was acknowledged. We were just going to handle it on a going forward basis, Commissioner.
Thank you. And the other, as to process, I'd like to direct to Commissioner Marecki as one of the preeminent local clerks. I read an article in the paper that the statutory change that allowed clerks to start opening the envelopes of absentees the day before was not taken advantage of by some of the communities that qualified, including some in Wayne County. And Terry, why wouldn't some of these communities start to do that, considering they're going to have 2 to 3 times as many absentee ballots? And if you were still in Livonia, would you have utilized that extra day to begin the process?
Yeah, and are they saying that they're not going to utilize the process? They've already decided they won't do that for this election. Are you?
I believe the deadline was this past week that they had to notify the Secretary of State. Okay. And there were a few in Wayne County, including, if I remember right, Canton Township, that said no thank you. And to me, I mean, you would know that area a lot better than most of us, and certainly better than me. I just didn't understand why you wouldn't want to get a head start on what's going to be a whole lot of extra absentee ballots.
Yeah, and I don't know anything about Canton Township, but I know that you're going to have an area that's going to be very secure, of course, because it's going to be an overnight type process. So maybe some of those areas, I'm not familiar about what Canton Township thought process is. I think I would have taken advantage of that, because all it is opening up the envelopes. And so if you can have those slit open, I mean, you cannot be taking these ballots out of the envelopes. It's just slitting it open, but you do have to have a very secure area that they will not be tampered with. The interesting thing too is these machines, I mean, I think they've gotten better since I left, but they're very susceptible to the weather and that type of thing. So if you have like a humid day, which you're probably not going to be in November, but possibly in August, and that can slow down the whole process with these. It's almost like the ballots almost swell. And it really, I mean, I had one election that the next day at 8:30 in the morning, we were going into Detroit with our results because of all the problems with that. So I would have taken advantage of anything the day before if I could do that. But again, it's got to be very secure, because you don't want anybody to ever think that your ballots are being taken out. Or, and one other thing is very interesting. There's been a big push at the state to do this early voting, they're calling it. And it's really causing a lot of confusion for the people that are going in with their absentee ballots, thinking that they're going to be put through a tabulator at that time, when in reality, they're just handing them to the clerk's office. Well, they're putting in the ballot box, which goes into the clerk's office. So there's really been a miscommunication with words, because we do not have early voting in Michigan. So I understand from the Livonia clerk, that's really caused a lot of angst where people think they're walking in and putting a ballot into a tabulator. So they're actually coming back to the clerk's office and asking that their ballot be voided so they can go to the polling places on election day. So I don't know. I think there's been a lot of confusion with all this. But to get to your question, yeah, Joey, I would have done it the day before.
Thank you. I thought I would have too, and I just couldn't understand why some people wouldn't want to do it. But there were a few communities, and I think you had to be over 25,000 residents to qualify. And there were 2 or 3 that said no thank you in Wayne County, I think.
Yeah, interesting.
That's it, Madam Chair. Thanks for the time on. I know it's something that's on everybody's mind. With coming up in 2 weeks.
Yep, sure is.
Yep.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I had a question in reference to something we talked about during the budget hearing.
Okay, Commissioner Baker McCormick.
Thank you. This was in reference to the clerk's office as well. The corporate counsel and the ethics or conflict of interest issues, ethical issues in reference to corporate counsel representing 3 different departments. I know we were supposed to get a breakdown in the charges, making sure that there was no overlap in the chargebacks or charges. I haven't received anything, and I don't know if you have, and if you have an update on where we are right now with that issue.
Right now, we do not have an answer. I am trying to get an answer for you from Corp Counsel, but as far as funding someone for the clerk's office, that was not in the budget. But I believed, and I'll say this carefully, I believed it was a conflict of personalities. And so I'm trying to work it out behind the scenes and
okay, when you say
get some relief.
I'm sorry, when you say a conflict of personality, we're not really referring to anyone's personality. We're referring to the overlap and the conflict of that overlap in various court cases that the same corp counsel is representing the clerk's office, the board of elections, board of canvassers, and also the election division. So the
answer I got to answer your question on that, I did get an answer. They are not charging 3-4 times or however many. The clerk feels she's not being represented properly by the person who's representing all of those entities. So, but the person gets paid the same amount no matter how many of those she is
right.
And
that's what we were told, but I just wanted to get that breakdown in writing so that we know what that looks like. Again, there are overlapping cases, and I'm not really sure how those are broken down so that, because it is, like I said, it's definitely a conflict in that they're representing the same issue in it for a different department or for a different department. So how look on paper when
Okay.
it's time to cut a check? Is it just a
think we'll have to-
salary? And if it is, can we have that in writing?
Hourly, probably, on how much time they spent on for each of those. Andy, do you have anything more than?
I'm Chair, I just, yeah, thanks. The one thing I just want to state is this term conflict of interest is a legal determination. We can discuss policy considerations, but from what I've been told by Corporation Counsel, Mr. Heath, there has been analysis by Corporation Counsel to look at this issue, and there has never been a finding that there actually exists a conflict of interest. It's worth discussing for sure. I want everybody to feel comfortable with that, but I do just want to point out that conflict of interest is a legal determination. Not, we talk about policy a lot, and I think the clerk was discussing certain policies, but I've never seen or heard of anything that actually made a determination that a conflict does exist. So I will follow up with the chair and with James Heath. I think that's worthy of another discussion, if you're okay with that, Madam Chair.
And
Yes.
when you look at that, you need to look at various cases that overlap and then make the determination of whether there's some conflict there. And that is the main issue right now is the overlap in cases, and also the payment for each case that is one and the same case for a different department or different area. So thank you. If you can look into that and let me know what you find, that will be that would satisfy my interest. Thank you.
Andy, I think you're going to have some cases maybe or I don't know, timeline or something to be.
And if you just, and I think if he just talks to the clerk, she can point the cases out directly.
She's been wanting someone for years and years, so I'm not sure that we're going to have a clear understanding, but we'll try.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anything else? I don't hear any. Next item, Madam Clerk.
G, public comments. Everyone has been unmuted.
Yeah, you can date it to the day that's on there.
Thank you. Did we get any emails?
No emails have been received.
Okay. Is there anyone in the public who's wishing to comment? Anyone in the public wishing to address the Wayne County Commission Ways and Means? I hear none. Next item.
Item H, adjournment.
So moved.
Support.
Been moved and supported. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
I heard a unanimous vote. We're adjourned.